Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Sounds Profitable's Product Deep Dive. I'm very excited to introduce you to Amanda DiMarco, the Director of Client Success at Veritonic. Veritonic is an awesome company that's all focused on audio insights, and they specifically have a new product all about brand lift that I'm really excited that Amanda's going to walk us through. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks, Brian.
So, Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Veritonic, and then we'll dive into the brand lift product?
Absolutely. So I oversee all of our client relationships here at Veritonic, and what's so amazing about that is I really get to hear the questions, the need states, all those midnight burning oil of the different types of brands, platforms, and agencies that are having the challenge to answer tough audio questions and performance questions from their day-to-day basis. So it's really great to be able to share that across the platform and our clients all together. And I think that really leads into Veritonic and a little bit about us to level set the ground here. It's exactly that need that Veritonic was born from, a need to have data to inform specifically audio decisions. There's so many elements and companies out there that have done it from a visual digital standpoint, but there was a need in the marketplace to do the same for audio. So that has been the heart of what we have done over the time, the last 6 years that we have been in business, is just really striving and presenting ourselves as the leading audio analytics platform. And that's why I want to emphasize the audio, because it's been our mission to make understanding audio easy and enabling every brand or company of any size to be able to inform their decisions better, faster, and stronger across their entire audio journey.
That's awesome. I'm such a big fan of the audio specific focus. I think in podcasting, we focus on the media or the inventory we're buying and not the media first, right? We're not talking about how the ad read went if it's host read. And so much of podcasting is still host read. We're not talking about A/B testing the creatives. We're not talking about what we can learn more about who's speaking or how it's performing. We just think, oh, that show didn't perform, and we moved on. And so Veritonic has always impressed me with their focus on the creative, because we don't have a lot of companies in this space focusing on it. And while it's not critical today, it will very quickly become critical, and more people need to be aware of it. So let's hear more about brand lift.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I jump into brand
Yeah.
lift, I think one area of getting back to that audio journey and why this is actually relevant for a brand lift is there's so many different elements in the marketplace that are going on that are going to ultimately impact your performance. So being able to look at it and understand the different driving elements, from competitive intelligence to the creative performance, your voiceovers, your different music elements, the script points, to ultimately that campaign performance, that brand lift that we're talking about and measuring, tells that whole story. So with that, I will jump into brand lift specifically, give you a little bit of sneak peek of what our platform looks like for that. But I think just to level set the ground a little bit, brand lift may be new for some folks. It might be a new term or measurement, and I know a lot of folks in the industry, this is a really big ask and a burning desire from clients to understand the effectiveness of their campaigns that they're spending millions of dollars on. And what we're trying to do is make this easy and accessible for all. Brand lift being more about that brand equity, not necessarily the full attribution of full end final purchase, validating on that, adding that product to your cart upon checkout, but some of the important terms that lead up to that, favorability and perception in the marketplace, memorability and recall of your brand and your message in the marketplace, what's just general awareness, and then ultimately that intent to make an action, whether it's purchase, sign up, or subscribe for. All of these are, really valuable elements to validate your performance.
Yeah. And so for all of you listening, brand lift often gets confused with attribution a lot, right? Like
Mhm.
we keep thinking about that attribution path, right? They've listened to the ad and then they convert it on a website. But brand lift is more about, especially in this situation, it's about the creative. It's how it resonated. It's about the audience. It's about the view of the brand, right? It's not a campaign lift or a performance lift, it's the brand lift. And so, Amanda, this is not a pixel based solution, right? This is a survey based solution.
So it is, and it's a good call out between the difference between brand lift and attribution, specifically when you start to speak about pixels. So, there's, and this is why this becomes very accessible for brands of different sizes, media campaigns of different sizes, because there's a very inclusive approach that we can take. One being a pixel-based approach, which is doing more about the tagging on the download of that podcast or streaming episode versus attribution places a pixel on a website. So that's just a really important key differentiator here. But what that means is we're actually tracking and finding folks that were served your ad and bringing them back into our controlled environment organically. And what that means is you're getting actual results from folks that have heard your campaign. And we go through a validating double screening process to make sure those are the right people that are actually giving the feedback that you are looking to have. And again, done very organically from those who have listened to it and matching that control, being that unexposed group to those who are exposed in a very consistent methodology.
Yeah, it's the data that you're getting is absolutely statistically relevant. It's super important to be able to look at that and apply it to a whole campaign, but it's difficult. And it's one of those things and one of those reasons why we don't hear enough about this right now, surveys or the creative review, because what's happening is they're identifying who has listened to the ad. They're figuring out which of those people can be retargeted effectively, right? And that basically just means household listeners. They're finding those people in other mediums. They're getting a survey request in front of them. They're getting them to engage in the survey request. They're asking them preliminary questions, filtering out the ones that don't apply to it, and then continuing. So it's a lot of effort and it's super worth it. But the reason we haven't seen it is because there are lower hanging fruit right now. But this is one of the biggest tools. Surveys are one of the biggest tools in podcasting that we, for whatever reason, have decided that we've moved past. And I disagree. And I'm so excited to see how much effort you put into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going into that and taking it a step further, right, starting with that validation of that campaign, it's important to understand the drivers behind it. And again, just going back to making audio easy for everyone of all sizes, giving you access to validate those campaigns. And that's, the theme you'll see here as I scroll through is just, Amanda's Amazing Autos. They were our number one client last year. But, all joking aside, right? We come into this campaign and you easily see your key insights at the top. Just being told what you need to know and providing context where needed. So a few bullet points up here that I just want to call out again to be examples is highlighting what was the ultimate performance of that campaign. Moving down into areas like awareness. And this is a really interesting example here. And again, why it's important to focus on having that audio experience that we do and being able to look at some of these different areas is a metric is just a metric until you have a benchmark and a relative baseline to compare to, right? So, we're looking at the increased awareness of Amanda's Amazing Autos. 3 percentage points may not sound like a lot, but when you have a brand that has over a 90% exposure already, high penetrating brand, high awareness, that is great to increase and be able to increase from that. And a lot of that expectation level setting doesn't always happen if you just look at a 3-point percentage increase when you think you should have 10 or 20. You can't even go above 100% at that point.
And that's something that, like, if you're a newer buyer or advertiser, if your product is newer, then like the attribution, the lift that you're expecting to see, right, and all of these things will be higher because nobody knows you. And that's okay, right? You might hit a show that you've already resonated well with the audience and not have much of a lift there. But if you're a major insurance company or something like that, like 1% lift might be worthwhile. That might be enough to move it forward. Now, Amanda, I see those questions there. These are, which of the following auto parts or accessory stores have you heard of? Does the advertiser or does Veritonic suggest the questions for the competitors?
Yeah. So Veritonic has a consistent setup of questions that go from awareness to perception or favorability to intent to recall that have a very consistent structure. And what we do is we work with our clients, right, whether it's the brands directly or the agency or platform on their behalf, to identify who that relevant competitive set is. And there's two reasons for that. One, we don't want, because this is an unaided in the pixel based approach, right? No one is hearing the audio, being served the audio. So we want it to be a natural, unaided reaction. We don't want to infer what this question's about, going to be about. So we like to
Yeah.
include a relevant competitive set. But what also is really interesting here is it allows us to actually filter and segment those who may be competitive users. So that's just another, really easy way. And that's, again, this is your key, hands on the keys here. So although we are helping guide you with this, you can dig in and play with as many different cuts as you want within our dashboard to just answer those curiosity questions. And that's one thing that we really try and support is think bigger beyond the campaign, beyond your targeted audience, because you can always come back if you have that question. Well, how would the males or females responded that are outside my demographic? And this is a really
Yeah.
alternative way to have added value down the road. So, to answer your original question, we work very collaboratively with our partners, but guide them in a very consistent methodology and approach.
And that's so cool, right? Because that means that you have the framework. You're asking them to fill out some pretty straightforward things. They should know their competitors, right? If you're advertising, you know who you're going up against, you know who you're losing sales to. And then in that situation, that filter is neat because I could say, oh, I want to just see data from Chase's cool cars. I want to see what the people who prefer to shop there think of my brand, or like all these other aspects. I can learn about them to start conquesting them, to start finding out more about how I want to appeal to that audience and pull them away. That's really neat.
Exactly. Those competitive switchers, that low hanging fruit, right? Those that are
Yeah.
already active in that category and you see an increase in perception from them, go get them, right? Start building your next campaigns. And you may find that you have a bigger opportunity than you thought from those competitors specifically, which I know everyone is out there trying to gain a larger share of voice.
Yeah, that's the goal. Awesome. This is really cool. I like how it's set up. I think it's just really palatable. It's also the type of thing that I feel like could screenshot pretty easily or export pretty easily to be able to put in a deck to present, which is I think a key feature. I think less and less people are going to open attachments and they want to see it in the email. So this looks like the type of thing that's digestible in a screenshot for the people who need it, and really in depth for the people who want more.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
great job.
absolutely. Thank you. We like clean design. That's definitely a big kudos to our engineering team there. But I actually, I wanted you touched on one really important element as we were talking about the awareness, right? About setting expectations, and that's where I love to help support tell the story with the different angles of that end to end platform and solution that really is your one stop shop to understanding it all. Because example here, right? We have a highly penetrating brand. A 3 percentage point increase in awareness or favorability is great. But do we know, or do you know what else was happening in the marketplace at that
Yeah.
time, right? So what we can actually do is jump over into our competitive intelligence platform and know that exactly and tell that story. And why this is important is, let's say there was a flat performance, perhaps even a negative performance. A lot of people would jump and say that platform wasn't the right ad buy for me. And that's not always the case. If we have the key, if I jump in and I see Jiffy Lube, for example, is one of my major competitors, and they had a tremendous ad campaign going on at the same time I was running. You know what? I'm going to be really happy that there wasn't a larger impact. And what's great is you could actually jump in and see who was Jiffy Lube talking about, if anyone, within that ad that ran in that time period that my campaign was running. And this is a tool that can really have that spelled out very clearly, that you can make those assumptions and know how to navigate next very strategically by having that insider view, really, at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
ultimately, on the flip side, right, let's say we knocked it out of the park. I saw double digit lifts. Everything was great. I planned my budgets around for my next campaign, but I see no one else was advertising at that time. It's a little bit of a way to couch your expectations. Say, you know what? Maybe I can't expect to do as well again. That wasn't a normal market environment, that not a lot of folks were advertising. Let me level set my expectations for my next move there.
Yeah. Yeah. You did really well because no everybody took that day off.
Exactly.
Uh, Now, not to scare the podcast folks, it says first heard on there. For those of you who are podcast first, those are radio stations. Might be new to some of you. No, I'm just kidding. So the Veritonic is a tool that works on more than just podcasting. So I see radio, there's podcast, and is this broadcast radio and streaming, or just one or the other?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a mix of their terrestrial streaming and the terrestrial AM FM stations and their like streaming. We're working on pulling in more sources of some of our big players out there that are your traditional streaming platforms. But for a starting spot, we're looking at the top 200 podcasts right now, soon to be the top 1,000, and
It's a nice jump.
it's not too shabby. And then also the top 20 markets and DMAs from a radio perspective, so that you have a really cohesive view of what's going on. And again, we try and do this at a creative focus, taking a little bit different of approach to give you
Yeah.
that insight and organize it to do a lot of that competitive insight.
But this also means that if I'm an advertiser and I'm in a market that you're not currently touching on, or I'm focusing on podcasts that are out of that top 1,000, within reason, I could probably petition you to expand into that for my campaign and overall for the tool, right?
Absolutely. There's always, a need that we are trying to solve. And I just think about advertising altogether. There's a consistent approach typically. So you can get, even if it's maybe not in your specific niche market, you can get a really good understanding of what brands are doing and make a logical assumption that it's going to be similar, or at least get a gist of the types of ads, the script points that they're using. They typically, I don't see too much variation when you move from one market to another, other than some specific geo connection, if you will.
Yeah. Outside of very few advertisers, I feel like the common practice is that you buy some of your strategy on big, well-known entities in your space, and then another set of your strategy is on things that are a little bit more niche for you, a little bit more hands-on. So by capturing these top 1,000 podcasts, by capturing those major DMAs, what Veritonic is doing is saying, like, if these are a competitor to you and you're competing on a national scale, then we got them, right? If you don't see them here, they might not be competing with you in this medium. And that's really cool. Then not like that day where you knocked it out of the park because there were no other ads, might be a month, a year, a quarter, whatever it ends up being, until someone wises up, uses this tool, and sees that you're just dominating and comes for you. So
Exactly. And now you know, right?
yeah, but
So
that's it. That's so smart. I really like that. And if I'm not mistaken, you can listen to the ads down there. I don't know if we're set up to pull that in, but that's very cool too. Do you transcribe the ad as well?
yes, absolutely. So,
So great.
jumping in down here, view ad. So not only do you have the transcriptions, you can play it here in a very clear to hear format, but very important features and factors. What's the identified speaker, male or female? What's the music presence, brand mention? We're playing around with a bunch of other cool metrics to pull in here, like potentially, is there sonic branding use? Is it a host or a voice talent? Those are all
That's cool.
areas where we're going.
Well, that's
So
neat because like the voice talent or the announcer ad would be so valuable because you're already grabbing all that audio beforehand. And so now, because you're so focused on the creative, you can see, does the voice match between the two?
mhm,
I think that's really powerful. I like the brand mentions, right? If you're trying to test out how to get your creative to resonate and someone's beating you on there, and you just find out these simple things, right?
right,
Like they're saying their name 4 times in there. That's, that could be something that you can use to improve your next creative and give it a shot.
yeah,
That's a lot of information about the competitive set. I
yeah.
like it a lot.
And I mean, perfect segue, right? How else to better improve your creative than actually knowing how it resonates from a second by second standpoint, and that's the last element of the suite of products here that fill into the brand lift. And I think what really sets it apart, because now you tell this full story and have a scripted guidance of how to make a change if you need to, right? So this is second by second engagement tracking that is included with the assets. And what we're able to see here is, specifically being able to listen to it. I see, the brand name, speaking of brand names, was mentioned right away at second two, and there was an increase in the sense of that energetic tone from the voice. I also see some need and solution call outs here that clearly resonate in relevancy to this audience. Looking for a fast oil change, we get you in and out in 15 minutes. There's a spike in the promotion
Yeah.
on likable, right? These are all ways that you can understand great, again, performance of my campaign on awareness, viewability. How did the competitors impact it? Now, how did my creative actually play into that? And do I have ways that I can make tweaks and changes as I reinvest down the road?
That's really neat. So basically, at the end of this, we have to say that if you buy 2 seats for Veritonic, you get one free because
Ah,
it makes it more likable. No, but this is different, right? This is a different tool completely. The first one was the survey based on people had heard it and you weren't putting the ad in front of it. How is this one run?
yeah, so this is another element from a forced exposure standpoint or controlled
Love it.
exposure standpoint. And this is actually, as we mentioned it, the way that the brand lift solution also becomes possible for smaller brands or those that don't have as big of an investment in the marketplace where there's just not enough, people to match on the download. This is a very valid solution to reform it in the same question setup, but rather than looking at it from an exposed versus unexposed, we're looking at it from a pre exposure to post exposure and looking at that lift. And what this does is it creates a really easy solution to be able to get some insight into how the ads could have performed in market. Another actual benefit for this that I've actually had a lot of folks use this for is speed. Something like this, right, from a forced exposure standpoint, turns around in about a week's time. And, this is a really good solution also if you're at the tail end of your campaign, wanted to gain some insights, too late to capture it live from the tail end of the impressions in the marketplace, another way to do it. So, really, all this is saying is there's multiple different angles for the platform to work cohesively to give you the same output and solution to a question or a problem that you have. And at the end of the day, right, I hope you can even get the sense from how we've had our conversation here. Our team is really here just help you learn and guide you on your audio journey. And I find it fun. These are the conversations that I find so exciting, and seeing that in the feedback and helping down the way is really what I also love about Veritonic altogether.
I this part excites me so much, and this is exactly what we are missing in this space, right? This says why a creative does or doesn't work. And maybe in Silo it shows some key talking points that are awesome. I'm sure the longer the ad goes, the more it drops off if it's not good, if it's not captivating. But you ideally you present a few of these, right? Like you give a few options, and because your goal here is to figure out which one resonates the best, hits the message points you want, and then you tweak or you run tests against different ones, different targeting. I I think that that's awesome. And a week is not a long time to turn around hands-on actual listener response for something like this.
Right?
Yeah, this is we are in a point in podcast advertising right now that the answer to so much is awesome, we'll do a make good, or we have more inventory and we can figure it out next time, or what about next campaign? And it's going to be a little bit before we are really forced to do optimization mid campaign. But that does not mean that it's not critical to do it now. This is how advertisers get more out of their money. This is how agencies and networks really show their value. And this is how publishers learn about what they do that resonates. So this appeals to basically anybody involved in the ad process, from creating announcer read ads to buying ads themselves and host read ads. There's a lot of value there too. I would love to be able to do a bunch of host read ads and show which of my ads resonate and be able to show people why I push back on their specific talking points that they want me to do. And I say, hey, look, my audience drops off when I say that type of thing. And I don't think it's in either of our best interests for my audience or your success.
Yeah.
So this is the next step of tools that I keep talking about that we're going to see more of. And it's definitely something you should start checking out today. Well,
Absolutely.
this is great. Amanda, anything else that you wanted to go over?
I think this covered it.
I think so too. Yeah.
It's again, it's super exciting. You see my enthusiasm about it. It's amazing where podcasting is going, where audio is going.
Yeah.
There's just so much opportunity, and I think we're all here for a very exciting ride of what is possible.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very, very excited for everybody to see this. And you can check out more at veritonic.com and take a look at the end card. We'll see if we have something that we can help set you up with a demo.